What is up, all you GBA type people? This is Tom, and we are here bringing you guys your Week 2 power rankings here at the GBA. With me, as always, is
What is going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar.
aka Kelly, as I'll do
Yep.
that every week. And
I never think to say it in an
I know.
intro.
So this week is a little different. There's going to be a lot of movement in both of our rankings because of the fact that just teams didn't necessarily play very well. They played very poorly. So you'll see some big shocks in terms of who was once, higher and who is now no longer higher on our list because of just the way they played and the way that they could improve for the future. Because I don't know, some of the battles this week were good battles, just a little underwhelming. Kelly,
Yeah.
do you agree?
I mean, I honestly think that this is the week to where the power rankings are based more upon not the people that succeeded, but the people that failed.
Thank you. That's a great way to say it. So leading off with someone who really failed, we'll start off with the Arizona Deoxys.
I think his situation is very awkward because not only did he get 6-0'd, but I think that he honestly didn't get 6-0'd by his opponent. I think that he 6-0'd himself because he didn't prepare well. The last 2 weeks he's gone up against Tup and Nips, who last season were arguably the two worst based on record. That's it. And I think that he kind of took that for granted and thought that it would be a little bit easier of a match than what it was. But both teams have significantly improved and just gone to show that they can't be easy wins. But I will say to the match, I think that his preparation kind of showed that he took the game for granted, like the Miracle Eye Mega Alakazam. I don't think that was a very good idea. I think that he knew that Gator was a problem, but he didn't really prepare for it. Like it just always seems to surprise me that people can notice a threat on an opponent's team and not prepare for it to the fullest extent. Because whenever you see something like a Feraligatr that can set up a Dragon Dance, a Scizor that can Swords Dance sweep you, anything that is a setup sweeper that can really hurt your team, that's what you focus your preparations on. And I don't feel like he did that. He also led with something that was Pursuit Trap Week, which I think is one of the worst things that can be done. I said that against Mulone last week. I think there was just a lot of things that he did wrong in his team prep, and I think that's where the game got away from him. I will say, though, that having U-turn over Volt Switch on his Thunderous was very smart.
I think that's really smart. I have put U-turn over Volt Switch on something like Zapdos before, just to ensure that it got out safely, didn't get trapped in by something like Nidoking, if I recall correctly. But speaking of which, now you said a lot of things I was going to bring up, but with Gubs, I think these past 2 weeks, like you said, it's been a sloppy plan with a subpar performance. The plan wasn't really there, whereas in past seasons, we might have expected him to be as thorough as Miguel has played last season, knowing your move before you make it, or being able to predict what your set is to a T, the same way the Boston Red Sox are doing these past 2 weeks. Talk more about that later. But specifically, Miracle Eye Mega Zam, I get it. Was it worth it? I mean, that's the big question. Was it worth it? Gubs getting rocks up was a little rash. There was nothing on Nips' team that suggested a Focus Sash, even Diggersby. And even then, like, it wasn't the biggest deal because I assumed Gubs would have a way of taking care of it. How did he not expect Psyshock on Mega Slowbro? Thinking that it wasn't, a possibility kind of blows my mind. There's just a lot of things that I have to critique. Why did he let his Thunderous T take so much damage early on? And then especially, how did he not expect Aqua Jet on Gator? It's like just the things that just went over his head, and the things that went over his head last week too, are baffling. Just I don't understand. And that's why I'm putting Gubs at the bottom. Because there's one or two things that are going to happen this upcoming week. Either he wins and he beats Steve and we throw a party, I think, or he loses and he stays there. That's one of two things. And frankly, I don't know which one's worse. So
I do think that Gubs is the type of player that he will realize what his mistakes are and that he will change them after, like, he's had a rough first 2 weeks, and I think this will be the time where he realizes what he's been doing wrong. He'll listen to critiques, and he'll fix everything.
No, I hope so, because something needs to change, or he's this season's gonna get away from him in the next 2 weeks if he loses two more times. Because I know, as well as a lot of other people, going like 8-4, it's like the cusp of a wild card. Any worse than that, you're not making the playoffs. So moving on from there, we both had the Arizona Deoxys at the bottom. Now moving on there, I have Steve at number 15. Now Steve, again, I mean, he was a little underwhelming as well. I think that his game plan for Nick, I mean, it was okay, but I can see it's Steve just not playing well. I want him to bounce back, and I want him to do better. It's just his planning isn't all there. Now, his dual screens on his Rotom Wash, I got it. It was a good idea. However, did he really think that Nick was going to allow that to happen and not get a proper matchup in against Rotom Wash? Unrelated, I love Steve's prep talk. I think they're funny, but I wish that fire translated into his matches. And it has nothing to do against Steve. It's just it's like watching the build up of watching the speeches before his matches doesn't necessarily respond to the same hype when I watch him play. His misclicks, holy goddamn his misclicks. Use a stylus, use the tip of a pen, use I don't know, just don't use your finger. I mean, I know I don't even use my finger because I know that stuff like the misclicks can happen. I know that's shitty. I mean, going for taunt, going for HP fire, not going for HP fire over hyper voice against the Skarmory. Those little things, man. Fix the little things, and the rest will come. You cannot have little mistakes. And then the other thing, Banded Dugtrio is hot garbage. Not being able to KO even a defensive or bulky Manaphy at 75-ish percent. Wow. That was impressive and also very disappointing, just overall.
I think that not only is Steve not fixing the little problems, he's it's not that he's trying to fix them, it's that he's bringing back old problems. Like, for example, he's brought sub Gardevoir so many times. Like, it would probably take more than two hands to count how many times he's brought sub Gardevoir between last season and this season. And it's just getting predictable. Like, people are just starting to know when to pack coverage on a Pokemon because they know I can't leave this thing in. Gardevoir is going to set up a sub on me, and it's getting very predictable. I think that, yeah, while the misclicks suck, it's like, how long until one turn can really determine a match between two players? Like, I realized that I said Dan and Miguel's match came down to basically one turn, and it determined the entire match. But if one misclick can determine the entire match like that, I think that might be a little bit of a problem, and I think he needs to fix what led up to just the bag that broke the camel's back. I think that Steve has a lot of potential. I just wish that he needs to take his time. He needs to not overthink, and he needs to ask himself a series of questions of what would I do? How would my opponent react? Does he think I'm scarfed? And how much damage can this do? Because everything else, it just seems that he's overlooking one of the key moments in a turn, and it's just backfiring on him every single week.
I mean, not only that, but I think he should also maybe talk with somebody else in terms of like team building. Even if he just discusses with one person for like 20 minutes a day or one day a week to kind of discuss his sets, maybe he'll find out ways that he can make his team just a little bit better. I
Yep.
think looking at his team, I think he had means of taking out Skarmory, but they were all hidden power fire. Like, if Nick is good enough to see that coming and understand that, hidden power fire is not going to do that much, especially if it's not stab. And now just quick tangent for the fans and the coaches alike. Just please understand that where we're coming from, we're critiquing from what we saw. We got it wrong. We get it. We're just analysts. We're not in your shoes. We're not battling. And we might sound like we're, harping on a certain thing, but again, we as analysts want to see you do better. We don't want to see the same mistakes. We don't want to see little mistakes. We just want to see good quality matches. So we want the little problems to go away, so that the more competitive, good battles come shining through like week one. So any
Yep.
coaches that sound like we're not like we're ripping them apart, just understand We just want to see more. Want to see more. That's it.
Definitely. And I think that every coach has the potential to be top ranked, top battlers. It's just the way they're going about it, it's messing them up.
Yeah, and I'm just addressing that because of the comments last week. They kind of maybe had the wrong idea about what we were commenting on exactly. I had Steve at 15, you had Steve at 13. Now, ironically enough, your number 15 is my number 13. Why don't you talk about it?
I have the Cincinnati Loudreds at number 15 for a couple different reasons. The first thing that really got to me is why he brought the exact same team. I will never really understand. The second that you can bring, like you have almost a dozen Mons to choose from to bring the exact same six. That is so predictable, it's not even funny. I feel like Mulone, he's gotten to just be a very predictable battler. And I've thought this from the end of last season because he was bringing pretty much the exact same sets, doing the exact same thing every single week, and relying on Weavile to be his revenge killer and get all the kills on his team and take care of everything. Somewhat mega Manectric as well. However, whenever you're starting to look at some of the teams that are matching up against him, they bring a lot of the same mons, but they differ in the sets. Like, it just bothers me so much that the team was the exact same thing. I think that his matchup was actually a very good matchup. I think he could have done a lot of things. It's just he didn't seem to want to. He seemed to not want to do anything this match except for just go in, Volt Switch, try to scare him out, and then maybe put on a little bit of pressure with his Mega Manectric.
You see, I don't think he had a good matchup. The reason
Really?
I say that is because he should have taken a red pen and circled the ever-loving shit out of Darmanitan. And you know what I don't think he did? I don't think he did that.
I don't think he did that either. It might have been a purple pen, but I don't think it was red.
Well, should have been red then. But like you said, he brought the same exact team, and he led with Azelf. Two things that were, oh my god, how surprising! I just it didn't work last week, and it didn't work this week. He got both his passive recovery items knocked off on two of his walls, who kind of didn't really have the best recovery options, if any, to begin with. Once he let Landorus T go down, I honestly think that was the end of his capability to win that match. Landorus T was the only thing stopping him from getting wrecked by Darmanitan because, and he said this at the end to some extent, my team is not very bulky. I have to send things in to die. That is his mantra for his team that I will be like expecting this entire season because, like, let's be honest, that's what he has to do. Once his opponent gets a really solid sweeper in and has the capability of hitting things really hard, he has to pick what like offensive mons he wants to die, regardless of their speed. If he doesn't have something to reliably check it or take it out because it's faster, he can't. You know, his team is just it's like just gonna get knocked off one mon by one mon at a time, and then just him forgetting that Clefable runs Ice Beam to completely destroy Landorus T was ugh.
Look up the moves of the Pokemon. I'm going to say this about 4 more times in this power ranking. Look up your opponent's moves. It helps so much that you would not even begin to understand. Even if it takes 2 quick seconds, you type in the Mon and then go to Bulbapedia and then type Control F Psychic, Control F Ice. And you can figure this shit out. Like, I just don't understand people. So many people can be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that they got that move.
I mean, not only that, I know when I was in the GBA, I'm sure you can agree, like, in my team building process, I would go to Cerebi and look up all 11 Mons just to get, an idea on my opponent of what Mons he has capability of bringing and to ensure that I was not surprised. Like, I mean, there was some things, like example of last year, when Hank brought Mystic Fire Mismagius, I'm sure I would have looked that up and understood that was an option, so it's like he can't run a different hidden power value on Mismagius.
Not only that, but if you look at team matchups, you can basically assume what is going to be a switch into what. Like, for example, on Hayden's team, you can basically assume that Mega Sableye is going to be a switch in to the vast majority of physical attackers. So what he has to do is he has to make sure that the opponent that he's switching into doesn't carry a fairy type move, and he's good to go. it's that type of thought process that some of these coaches need to get into that I think will really help them.
I mean, to give Hayden a little bit of credit, last week the way he handled the Roserade with Dazzling Gleam, how well Mega Sableye took it, that was good, even though it
Definitely.
was super effective against one of his premier walls.
Yep. And that's the thing. Hayden has gotten to the point to where you can't predict that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about that whenever we get to Hayden.
Right. So, like I said, we had Steve and Mulone swapped. So in the middle, I have the San Francisco Giants, and I figure I'll talk about him because kind of got a lot to say. Yeah, we'll keep it at that. So Gio, again, I said in the beginning of the season that I feel like Gio's team has very few ways of creating a long-lasting offensive presence against his opponent. And in doing so, I think that kind of came to be very apparent this week against Dan. Dan played immaculately. I will say that from the get-go. And I will also say that freezes suck. Oh, man, I hate freezes so much. I'm sure anybody hates freezes. It's like, it mixes like sleeping and flinching into one 10% possibility, and it seems that Dan gets those very, very often. Nothing against him. Gio had a lot of issues from the get-go when it came to Heracross and when it came to Blastoise. I don't know what Gio's thing is with not bringing Amoonguss, but Amoonguss was pretty much one of his only options to handle Heracross. The freezes on his part really did suck, and just overall, I think he made again very small mistakes. Not changing Mega Pinsir's set early on, not giving it CC or Earthquake to hit Mega Aggron, pretty much allowed Mega Aggron to switch in for free, thus allowing him to take Rocks damage just to stack. And it put the control in Dan's hands just almost immediately. Sorry. Overall, I think Gio, his back was against the wall from the get-go. Didn't have very many answers to Heracross, Victini, Blastoise, a lot of things, Mega Aggron. And most of his sets were just completely unsuccessful. And I don't know, what he's doing in planning, but I think that has to be adjusted too. He has to create some offensive pressure. He can't let his opponent continually be in the driver's seat and continually to push the match in the way that they want it to go. And finally, his ending tactics with going for the protects, just know when you lost. That's all. I don't care if you were trying to be funny, just know when you lost.
I think that the big thing with his team prep was the fact that I think Amoonguss would have been so good this game. I don't know what he could have taken out. I understand why he brought everything he did, and I think that what he brought was good. I just think that Amoonguss would have been better. And a Solvest Amoonguss with Foul Play, Hidden Power Fire, Giga Drain, and another potential move like Sludge Bomb for dual stab to hit Sylveon, I think it would have been much better. I think it could really put the pressure on. It wouldn't have been Spore, because if you watch Dan's matches from Season 3, when he had Heracross, you would know that he did run the Sleep Talk set to switch into Sleep Powders and Spores.
Yes, he did.
So then that means that you wouldn't have to go for a Spore. He would come in and take either a Foul Play, which would do a lot of damage because he was Adamant Choice Banded, or you could have gone for Hidden Power Fire against the Aggron and it would have done a lot of damage, or same to Blastoise. I think that would have been a very good substitute to try to whittle him down. Another thing that I think really hurt Gio was not getting up rocks early enough, because Dan did a lot of switching in to his Heracross, to his Blastoise, to all these mons for free, and they essentially took no damage from it and only putting pressure on Gio, to where if he had gotten rocks up early on, I think it would have been a lot better. I think that he prepped for Victini decently well. I think that he was a little bit more worried about Victini than he should have been, because Heracross was so threatening against his team. I do think that the freezes kind of sort of determined the match, though, because if he hadn't gotten the freezes, I don't know if I'd be sitting here saying you lost. I might be sitting here saying, well, you could have won, just it might have been a little bit more difficult. I think that he definitely did have a chance there. I know that you don't agree with his play style. However, I do. That's the way I play in leagues. I play with 4 walls, 2 sweepers every single game. It's just the way I play. I make sure that I can whittle everything down decently, and then I just go in for the kill, which I think that's where Gio lacked this game.
See, but that's the difference. I mean, I'm sure that in your team building process, you have the four walls, but you also have two game changing or very effective sweepers that just finish up the job. I don't feel like Gio has that. Yeah, he has Mega Pincer, but he's not using it as prolifically as we've seen Gubs or Hank use it in previous seasons. And then, like Latios is just Latios. Like, unless it's the calm mindset or it's a subset, it's not effective. And even the way that he's using it is more of a utility mon. Outside of that, Entei is forced into an offensive role, not necessarily chosen to be in an offensive role. And then finally, this is kind of like a soapbox thing. But if you're gonna do a live com, I don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying the live com so far. Don't like toxic or move stall. I get it, it's a live com. You're trying to entertain your audience, but like draw a line as to what you want to like portray. I just don't find watching you try to move stall or toxic stall your opponent that fun when you're doing it live. Like, if anything, speed that portion up, talk over it, or like find a means of making that part less difficult to watch and less tedious, I guess.
So my number 14, I have the Detroit Steelwings and Crimson Seabad. I'm going to start off by saying that Crocodile set was genius. I loved it. I think that was absolutely perfect. I think that if Shady didn't forget that Rosary got extra sensory, I don't think you would have been in the insane lead that you were early on. I also think that in the team prep, I really, really think that Calm Mind Latios did a lot to Shady's team. I mean, granted, you might have had to go with no recovery with like Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, and then Psychic to hit Venusaur, Jirachi, and Milotic. That would have done so much work to his team. After one Calm Mind, everything would have died. And it's like, and I think that's where one thing really went down. It was a very tit for tat kind of game. And I think that if he had tried to play around it a little bit easier, he wouldn't have let so many things die. And I think he could have kept the match in his control. And I think he actually could have won.
Like you said about the Roserade, I think it was a great set. Latios would have been a little bit better, but I could see how Roserade was so effective. In addition, Moxie Scarf beat up Crocodile. Wow, I love it. I love it so much. I think this specifically is what I was kind of hoping in terms of Crimson not planting himself into a box. He looked into Crocodile's moveset, found something that was so niche that it was effective, and then used it, and it worked. Like, it worked very well. I want to see him do that every single week. And the nice thing about Beat Up that might have been a little inadvertent, but it ensured that A, he was faster than Zam. B, it wasn't just like knockoff where he knocked off the sash, but Zam still got down to its sash. And since it was a multi-hitting move, it was just clean knockout. Finally, I think that him forgetting about extreme speed at the end with Zygarde, it was standard, small oversight, but I think at that point, I think Shady just had that game kind of wrapped up, and I'll explain how Shady kept it together a little bit better later on in the match than Crimson did, which kind of resulted in why he had lost and Shady didn't.
I honestly think that Crimson lost the second that he clicked Roost with his Charizard. I think that if he had gone for an attacking move, because realistically, at +2, Extreme Speed might not have knocked him out. From that range, like if he had, because whenever he went for Roost, he went first. That means he went for Dragon Tail, which means it OHKO'd the Charizard. But if he had gone for an attacking move and knocked out the Zygarde, he would have been good to go. Because if I'm not mistaken, his only Mon left, or he only had 2 Mons left, and it was Rhyperior and Sharpedo, maybe? It was something along those lines, and I think that he could have done a lot better if he had gone for an attacking move, and I think that is ultimately what lost him the game, was over-predicting with the Roost. And I think that Crimson is actually playing his team very well. I think that he's getting more and more comfortable with his team. Like with Roserade, I think he played that extremely well. It's just he's really showing that he's learning his team. I really like that.
That's what we want to see. Just get better. So with the Giantes, I am at 14. Kelly had him at number 12, and then he had the Detroit Steelwings number 14. I had them up at number 11. So I guess we're going to move on to the team that beat Gubstacular, the Long Island Regirakis. He was rewarded with that sweep. And I say that not to bash Nips. I say that because Gubbs' planning was so that Nips was just in the perfect situation.
Could
He
you make that sound one more time real quick?
No, because you're gonna somehow keep that recording. Yes, he got the first 5-0 sweep of this season. It was great for him, you know? He came away with that match in a very dominant way. However, little things. There are little things that are still going through that need to be fixed. Zam does get knockoff. Does he not watch other coaches? You need to watch other coaches. Like
I
that was
think Tup used knockoff on Mega Alakazam last
yeah,
season
that was
almost
Tup's
every single
that
match.
was Tup's things last season, and it was awesome. You know, you got to watch other coaches. It was the way that he was able to take off the Violite off of Chansey last season. To continue, that for Alligator set was sloppy. Okay, and I say that because it was Aquajet, Waterfall, and Earthquake, no ice coverage. So that means that Cradilly was almost a hard counter to Feraligatr, just to Feraligatr. Like two of its water moves, its stab water moves, wouldn't be able to hit it. And then if Gubbs ran like a stockpile set or was very like full defensive, he would have been able to take the hits from Feraligatr and maybe reciprocate accordingly with like Giga Drain or something, getting off massive damage. I think that Gubbs not bringing that with Nips just being in the right situation got him that win. I think that also Nips just straight up forgot that Frostlass got taunt, even though it's pretty much standard. And fun fact, Sheer Force doesn't allow flinches with Waterfall.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was rewarded with a sweep. Did he necessarily facilitate that sweep in a dominant way you would watch another coach do it? Not really, but it was a good sweep. I enjoyed watching Gubbs' soul get ripped out of him the same way Magron ripped out my soul a little bit.
I honestly have to 100 and like 43% disagree with you about the Feraligatr set. Reason being, okay, so hear me out on this. Say he did bring Ice Fang to hit Cradilly. That means that then a physically defensive Tentacruel would wall it. What were the odds that he would bring Cradilly over Tentacruel? Because Cradilly had a very shitty matchup. It truthfully did, between Diggersby being able to nuke it with an EQ, between so much on Nips' team being able to actually handle it, like Gengar, like there was a lot. So I can understand why I went with EQ over Ice Fang. I really can. I think that was smart. And the fact that he brought Aquajet was even smarter, just in case Gubbs had something with a Choice Scarf to outspeed it. I think it was a very smart set. I really thought that he deserved to get the sweep with that set specifically. Do I think that he got lucky with it? I'm going to say yes, because like you said, he made a lot of little mistakes. And if you're not going up against somebody that is, I'm going to call him new to the format because he is coming back. He's kind of sort of new, even though he knows it really well and he's proven it before. He's kind of just brand new to it again. They're not going to let you make those little mistakes. Like, I can promise you, Nick, Lars, Fizz, they're not going to let you make those mistakes and sweep them. Like, you're going to make those mistakes and they're going to sweep you. So watch out for that. Look up move coverage. Whenever you said that Mega Alakazam doesn't get knockoff, I actually turned off the match because I was like, are you serious? Did that really just happen? I had to come back about 30 minutes later and watch the match because I was like, Tup did that every single season, every single game last season. It really frustrated me because so many times this week I heard, it doesn't get this. This won't happen. So it's frustrating, but I think that if you realize the little tiny mistakes, he'll keep getting wins. I don't think he'll keep getting sweeps, but he'll keep getting wins.
Well, see, that's the crux with the GBA. Unfortunately, there are coaches who will go the extra mile and watch their opponents, even if it was just like their last week match, in order to prep for their this week match. Some coaches do that better than others. I mean, there have been coaches in the past who don't watch a single minute of any other coach. And in doing so, they get surprised by these very common sets, or these sets that, they might find to be surprising. But from a viewer standpoint, you have to sit there and scratch your head and go, how does he not, see that in his week 3 match? It's week 5. How did he not see that? Or stuff like that. We're seeing that with Nips' end. It's just, you can't get away with that when you're playing the coaches that are going to be in the upper echelon that have already, won 2 matches or in this upcoming week have, proved themselves a little bit more. I'm not buying this 5-0 sweep as things to come. Like you said, he'll still win, maybe not get sweeps, but he'll play well enough to win.
And I do think that he saved the Feraligatr till the right time. I think that was smart on his part. I think that if he rushed the Feraligatr sweep, it wouldn't have happened and he would have lost the entire match. And then we would be having a completely different conversation.
That's true. I mean, Gubbs did get big damage off on Thunderous early for no reason, whereas Nips did save Feraligatr for the right time. So you have a number 11. I have Nips number 12. We'll now talk about our shared number 10.
I don't want to say that Tup played badly when he lost. I don't think Tup played badly at all. I think he made one mistake that lost him the match, and that was the Scarf Cobalion staying in with his Mega Tyranitar. I think that lost him the game. Aside from that, he was in the game the whole time. He wasn't really making misplays. He wasn't doing a whole lot wrong. I think that he's really improving, and I'm really impressed with Tup. I really am. I also think that Arcanine was a massive win condition for him. It kind of sort of ran through his entire team with Wild Charge, Flare Blitz. It really did a lot, and he played it so risky that it weakened it to the point to where it couldn't do what it had to do. I know I've said before that people play their win conditions a little too safe, but you have to find that middle ground to where you don't let them get so weakened that they can't do their job like what Thunderous did for Gubbs. But this was almost a little too risky to the point to where it was game-changing.
Tup said it himself. He recognized that this was not his best match. I'm not saying that it was a bad match necessarily, because his week 1 match was pretty stellar. It just wasn't his best match. And, he did show signs of improvement. He did show his capability of playing well for the long run. I think if he had clicked Focus Blast on Lars's switch-in, Cobalion switch-in, that would have been awesome. And it certainly would have put Lars on his heels very early on. Then let's continue to something that was really bad, him running leftovers over Colaberry on Jellicent. He knows that Mega Absol has been a very potent force on Lars's team. I'd like to believe that the Pursuit Trap idea, the knockoff, would have been a little more prevalent in his mind with something as powerful as Mega Absol. It wasn't a bad play to keep Arcanine in, but like you had said already, Arcanine was a rather large win condition for Tup, but it did allow him to get, big damage off on the Slowking, and then also led up to him KOing Sandslash, but also at the cost of his Arcanine's well-being.
And at the same time, getting a lot of damage off on a Mon that is key to a Regenerator core might not be the best idea.
Right. And that, that kind of goes into the whole, was it really worth it question?
Yeah.
The crits on Tangrowth, those did matter. But not going for E-Speed turned a potential 2-0 into a 3-0 for Lars. And that, that 1-0 could mean the difference later on down the road. Tup lost this match one mistake at a time. Little things by little things swung the momentum so quickly back into Lars's favor that it was almost impressive in a kind of a shocking way. We watched him last week basically take all the momentum all at once from Gubbs and go, mine, not yours, I'm winning this match. And he did that. This week, not so much. The one thing I will say is that at the end, the same way that a few of the coaches did this week as well, when they did lose or did win, they recognized all their mistakes. They didn't sweep them under the rug. They didn't just pretend like this was another loss or that they can do better. But they specifically pointed out their mistakes, and then they went ahead and said, I'm going to fix this for next week because I want to win. I can't discredit it from that. I can't discredit Crimson for that. Moving on later, I can't discredit Shady for that either.
I think that Tup is greatly improving, and I think that if he keeps this mindset, he'll keep doing so much better throughout the season. I have a lot of confidence in Tup.
Let's move to number 9, or Kelly's number 8, the New Orleans Pelipers. Now, John faced a very potent front office in the Atlanta Hawlucha. John just wasn't impressive at all. He put his Mons into a boxed set, and he just ran with these standard, almost, meaningless sets. His Confuse Ray Lantern, I don't like Confuse Ray in the GBA because more times than not, it does not work out. And the coach sees confused right, and they mostly go, okay, that's a minor inconvenience, like a mosquito bite. It's not like swagger, which is, oh my god, this is fucking annoying. Fizz had two flying mons. John going for EQ. Holy goddamn! Slow down. This is not showdown. Yes, John, you said this wasn't showdown. However, you can't do that. You cannot go for a move that two mons, being Togekiss and Charizard, are both immune to, thinking that he's gonna stay in. Yeah, Fizzy was staying in, with the Togekiss against the Raikou, but it was just that took all, like you said in your commentary, took all the winning, all the momentum, everything out of your hands, and Fizz essentially ran away with it. Fizz had so many answers to each of John's mons, not just 1-to-1. It was like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 in some cases, which I think was immaculate planning on Fizz's end, and a little head scratching on John's end, because he was looking at like 1-to-1 matchups, but Fizz was looking at the bigger picture, and it worked out for him. John had very standard sets, very generic, not that creative, not that aggressive, and it wasn't that good, and it showed in the match, because he never really got a foothold into Fizz's team. Fizz also brought AV T-Tar, something that John didn't even scout for before sending in Reuniclus, which essentially just became pursuit/crunch fodder. That was something that set John onto his heels very early, and in doing so, he kind of just lost very little by very little by very little. And yeah, what can I say? John drops this week a lot because of how just uninspiring and unimpressive his play was.
I think that John honestly wasn't playing this game. He was playing, but he wasn't playing to win. From turn one, he didn't have any type of momentum. He didn't have any type to try to make Fizz think, okay, I don't know what he's going to do. How do I figure out what he's going to do and answer this? Fizz was always like, okay, he's going to do this now, so I just have to do this and I'm good to go. Oh, okay, so he's just going to stay in? Okay, I'm good to go. No worries. I have answers for this. And it's like whenever your opponent can just basically sit back with their arms crossed and be like, okay, no problem, and then click a move, it's like that's when you know that you're not playing the way that you should. You mentioned the EQ, and I think that was one turn that I was like, why? Like I actually scratched my head and I was like, why are you going? I don't understand his team prep. I think that like you said, confuse rate is I think any type of move like that is silly. Like attract, confuse rate, anything like that in the GBA format is silly. Whenever you could run another move that could potentially help you with something. Like he could have ran discharge for all I care and gotten a higher chance to para something to make it slower for something like Mega Scizor to outspeed and hit like Tyranitar with a superpower or anything like that. I think that would have been better than confuse rate. Like I think John needs to take a step back and go back to the way he built in round one and build like that again.
I actually looked up, after the match. I was like, does Lantern get yawn? I thought it got yawn for a minute. But two small critiques that I will say for John is I think HP Ice over HP Fire would have been a better idea for Virizion, mostly because I think he could have foresaw the fact that he'd have a grass move. So maybe once Fizz kind of learned that, Garchomp would have been a switch in, and maybe that bigger damage over the force of rough skin damage would have been better in the long run. Also, John only had two ways of dispatching Megazard Y. He had Stone Edge on Virizion, which is weak to Megazard Y, so, if you miss, you're dead. And then I think he had like one other rock move. I can't quite remember what it was on, but he only had two ways of dispatching the biggest threat, arguably, to John's team. That right there, like you said, he was playing the physical definition of him actually playing that match, but he wasn't playing the way that we might have seen John play in the past, and that worries me because he has quite the test in Shady, who has been playing very well so far this season. So, he can't do that again. He just can't. So at Kelly's number 9, we have the team I was just talking about, the New York Yankees.
The New York Yankees. Okay, I'm going to say it one more damn time. Look up opponents' movesets. Roserade cannot touch Mega Venusaur is 110% false. It can. I think that a lot of people think that not switching out his Alakazam on the Crocodile was a stupid decision. I think it was a very smart decision because if he was Focus Sash, because at the time we did not know when he had switched out and Crimson had clicked Pursuit, think about what would have happened. He would have gone directly down to the Sash and he would have been an easy revenge kill later on from anything. Like, is that really worth it? When he could have just stayed in, maybe lived a Pursuit because it would have been half power at 40 base power, and he could have gotten off damage like a Dazzling Gleam, an Energy Ball, or what have you. I think that was very smart. I think that the Zygarde set was something that he happened to have work for him by luck. So the Zygarde set had Dragon Tail and Extreme Speed with Glare, and then there was one other move I can't remember. But basically, if Crimson's Charizard was at full, he would have lost anyway, and the weakness policy was completely useless. Like, run Dragon Dance. That way, you get a +1 attack, you can run 3 moves, and you can hit something much harder, and you don't have to worry about Dragon Tailing. Like, that's the one thing I don't understand. It also forced you to have to go for Dragon Tail against a Dusclops, which can Will-O-Wisp and burn you. Like, that's not good. It could have also gotten up a Trick Room, which if he had been running a Trick Room set and he was running like the Will-O-Wisp Pain Split set, he could have stalled him out completely and it would have been for nothing. Like, there was just a lot about the Zygarde set that I think he got very lucky on. And that was just completely with the HP Ice. And then he got a crit with the Dragon Tail. I don't know if the crit mattered. I didn't calc it, nor do I care to. I just think he got very lucky.
Wow. So aggressive. Did we ever find out what Shady's 4th move was?
I don't think so. However, one thing that I think he could have considered if he wanted to run Dragon Stab was to run Draco Meteor. He's at +2 special attack. He's going to be doing a lot of damage to a Charizard X with that, if not OHKOing it. And it would have just been more stab coverage that he could have hit. And it would make a lot more sense than relying on Dragon Tail.
If you know anything about Shady, you know that he hates Draco Meteor. Just a little thing.
Yep.
So, Shady, I'm not going to come down as hard on Shady as you have. I have him up at number 4, as a matter of fact. So I think that Shady is playing very well. I think that he's not sliding through matches. He's also not creating these commanding wins. But he's playing in a way that keeps him from ever being really in jeopardy. And I think it's going to be an asset for him. Yes, the first turn where he forgot that Roserade gets extrasensory, which put a big hamper on his Mega Venusaur. Yeah, okay, that sucked. However, he recognized that. I did get a chance to talk to Shady, and I think that he immediately learned from that, like I said about Tup and Crimson. The fact that they understand where they went wrong, how it went wrong, and how it could have been that much worse is something that I will value largely from a coach's perspective, because I'm sure you and I have been there. It's better to recognize where you could have potentially lost or what you can improve for the future, rather than harp on it as an analyst and be like, well, they should have known better from the first place, because that doesn't always work.
Yep.
Sometimes critiquing in a positive way is better than knocking them down for the sake of knocking them down just to make yourself feel better, I guess. Anyway, I get a lot of Shady's moves towards the end of the match. The way that Shady kept going for Roar to keep Dusclops out from going for sub Pain Split was smart, because I hate that. I really hate sub Pain Split on Dusclops.
I love it so much.
You are such a troll, but in a good way. Shady then going for staying in Zygarde, taking the HP Ice, and getting Weakness Policy just to go on a sort of tear. It was flashy and it worked. And I like that. I think that the Dragon Tail set was good, but I see what you're talking about. It was potentially a liability, because at that point he was paralyzed, right, from the body slam. So because of that, if he had so Crimson only had Megazord X left, and if he had went for Dragon Tail to KO the Dusclops, or almost KO the Dusclops, and phase it out, what's coming in? A Megazord X. More times than not, Crimson's going to be running some sort of setup move on a paralyzed Zygarde, I could see how he might have thought that was a bad move because, oh no, once that Zardex gets one D-Dance under its belt, it's pretty much game over, even though Shady had a Sharpedo because, like, base 100, base 85, Mega Zardex is still going to outspeed. So, I get why he did that move. I understand why it worked out for him, and I think it was good because then he used my mascot, Sharpedo, and I love that. I think that he did a fantastic job in letting Sharpedo just kind of clean up late game, and I want to see that more. I do think Sharpedo was a good pickup. I like the fact that he's using it in a like a last man type thing where it's cleanup crew. It's not a premier sweeper. It's a glass cannon. He recognizes that. Keep it up.
I might be harsh on Shady this week just because I know how good Shady has the potential to be because we've seen him make or almost make playoffs every single season. And this season he has a team to where he could win playoffs. Like I know how good he has the potential to be. So I just want him to perform to my expectations.
That was Kelly's number 9. I have Shady all the way up at number 4. Mostly I just believe in Shady maybe a little more than big ol' meanie over here. Hey, Shady people, get him, not me.
God damn it.
So moving on, I have the other side. I have Dan in St. Louis Rampardos. You have Dan up at number 5.
I do.
Now, I think Dan, like I had said, he played very well. I think he played a coach that allowed him to be in the driver's seat. And he was in control all around. He had the team to do it, and he had the sets to do it. I think the way he brought Blastoise this week very much complemented the way he wanted to use Blastoise from the get-go. And to continue, the way that he utilized Heracross and Victini and not bringing them in until they were absolutely necessary was also a great idea. His team building is fantastic. The way that he maintains momentum with using Baton Pass and double switches is awesome. He is doing such a fantastic job in ensuring that a matchup stays in his favor and that he can always know what the risks and benefits are of making those types of those switches. To continue from that, the one thing that I think that sets Dan's live comms aside from other people's live comms in terms of the GBA is audibly he will weigh and review all the positives and negatives of his aggressive doubles and his plays to ensure success. He doesn't just do it and then let like his mind or whatever convince him that it's a good play, but he'll talk about it. He'll say, well, okay, he can switch into this. If I make this play, what else does he, how does it benefit me? What's the downside? What's the upside? Will this put the match in my favor for the long run? He does that in such a way that it always works out in a good way for him. And even if it's not the best outcome, it's still positive in his favor. I love that, and I want him to keep that up. Like I said, when we talked about Geo, he has immaculate luck when it comes to freezes, and I don't think that is going to end anytime soon because he does have things that can run Ice Beam and Ice Punch very well. And overall, he played very well. He saved Heracross and Mence till they were absolutely necessary to get KOs or get off big damage. And, like I said, he's just playing the way that we all expected him to.
I think that this was the Dan that nobody expected when you first saw his team that he drafted. He played amazingly. I can think of one mistake that he made in team building, and that's the fact that his Scarfed Salamence didn't outspeed a Scarfed Entei. And I just want to say, whenever you can speed creep something, speed creep it. Because if it comes down to the fact that you didn't and you could potentially lose a game because of it, that's no bueno. If he had been faster than the Entei, he could have changed his 2-0 win. I believe it was a 2-0 win. Yeah. He could have gotten like a differential higher, like a 3-0 win, because he would have killed it with Outrage. Like things like that are just minor that Dan normally does that he didn't do this week, and it kind of surprised me. That's why I caught it. I think that the way he played Heracross was absolutely fantastic. He knew that there were no hazards up on the field, so he could switch it in and out as he pleased. I'm going to openly say that I would never think to have Sleep Talk on a Choice Banded Heracross as Spore Bait. I would never think of that. I've never have thought of that. And the fact that he did is very smart. I think that takes creativity. I don't think I've ever seen anybody else aside from him do it. Have you?
It was a big standard in in Gen 5. I know that I've done it before. It wasn't as shocking to me, mostly because in Dan and I's match back in Season 3, he did the same exact set. It was the same exact moves: Close Combat, Mega Horn, Stone Edge, and Sleep Talk. And I almost lost because of it, but I ended up winning with the Scarf Scissor with Bullet Punch after he had gone for Close Combat, like later on in the match. But it's not as shocking to me. It is a great set, and I think that was one of the things I was most excited to see him use because of the fact that he is so damn good and familiar with Heracross, especially that Choice Band Sleep Talk set.
See, that's why I didn't expect, because I never played 5th gen. But the fact that he did, that is so smart. Like, that just goes to show the intelligence that he has when he goes into battling. I think that his Mega Aggron set was amazing. His coverage moves are exactly what I meant earlier in the video when I said you can expect switch-ins. You can look at a team matchup and be like, okay, to my Mega Aggron, he is going to switch in his Latias. He is going to switch in this. I'm going to carry Ice Punch and hurt it. That's the type of stuff that Dan does that I love watching about Dan. I think he's so good at just picking his coverage moves perfectly. I think that he needs to be more careful about his abilities on his Pokemon, but that's just simple stuff that could happen to anybody. I understand. I've done it before. But ultimately, I think Dan played fantastically. If he keeps playing like this, I'll see you at the championship.
Not to mention that, but Ice Punch pretty much covered like half of Geo's brought team, and he
Yep.
wasn't going to bring in his other Mons like Vaporeon or Entei in on a Mega Aggron. That would just be horrendous.
Yep.
So, at our share number 7 as well, we have the Real Morel. I'll lead off talking about Miguel. Plain and simple, he kind of overlooked George. I think his team was good enough. I think he was a little reckless, a little aggressive, and I think George just came out swinging in a way that he was able to overcome Miguel. Now, Miguel's set for Mew, the way he had led with it, he misplayed it, I think, and he even recognized that. The fact that he had Psyshock and Flamethrower, so he didn't really have a means of checking or hitting Gothitelle that hard. Gothitelle is a very special defensive mon, and George was able to trap it and thus KOing it, which put Miguel's momentum, in jeopardy essentially from very early. To continue from that, I think his double into Mamo was a little too aggressive for Miguel to pull. I see why he did it, but it's not something that we would often expect Miguel to do by putting a sweeper, and a premier sweeper at that, in jeopardy so early on. Fun fact, and something that I'll talk about, Extra Century Zapdos, I've never seen that before. It's a bitch to Gen, which do you know where it's from, Kelly?
I think it's from Gen 3, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, technically. It's actually from XD Gale of Darkness. So you have to set it like that it's from there, and you have to give it Extra Sensory. Otherwise, it doesn't go through bank. That shit was annoying. But very, very cool set. I love that Miguel, unlike some other coaches, he dove real deep into that moveset. And it paid off because, looking into it, I didn't know that Zapdos got a Psychic move that wasn't HP Psychic. No one runs that. So to continue, Miguel was very confident that he would be able to, not worry about rocks or hazards. That was kind of an oversight. He didn't have any way of getting rid of rocks, which hurt Zapdos a lot. And, he didn't have any way of getting rid of, like, spikes or toxic spikes, which we saw George pack on Nidoqueen. If George had gotten those toxic spikes even one layer up, that would have put a big, big hamper on Miguel's team because of the fact that, once Mega Altaria Mega Evolved, it would be poisoned coming back in because it would lose the flying type, and it wouldn't have natural cure anymore without Pixelate. All these little mistakes that Miguel's made, he did kind of choke that match away, but I think just George played that much better overall.
So I'm going to start from the beginning and say that I think Miguel's team building in general was very poor. I think that his team was way too defensive. I think that his Mew set was absolutely 110% wrong because whenever you look at George's team versus Miguel's team, what on Miguel's team switches into Megalophony and takes it decently? And remember, this matchup happened in the championship with Miguel versus Dan. He said, Mew is going to be the switch into Megalopony. He said it multiple times in his team builder last season. If that's what you could switch into it, because that's about all he could switch into it, because his only other switch in would really be Ferrothorn that doesn't want to take high jump kicks or fire punches. Why would you run a sub nasty plot set? Wouldn't it make more sense to run a defensive set with like U-turn so the one true stop that you have to Megalopony doesn't get trapped by Gothitelle? Because that whenever I saw the team matchup, I was like, that's going to scream to me that he's going to get trapped by Gothitelle. He's going to run Volt Switch. He has to, so he doesn't. And then he could send in something like Mamoswine to knock it off. He could send in something like Greninja to U-turn and Dark Pulse. He could have run a very offensive Volt Turn core with Zapdos, Greninja, Mew, and Braviary and done 150 times better just because he could have kept initiative, nothing would have gotten trapped, and he could have gotten so much chip damage that meant that the extra sensory from Zapdos would have been able to clean up late game. I think he went in with this mindset that his team matchup was so good that he didn't really have to try to build the perfect team like he normally does, and it ended up coming back to bite him in the ass.
There were a lot of tiny flaws, and he recognized at the end that him bringing in Mega Altaria to take that huge hit from boosted Blaziken, just all these things, man, that just culminated into him essentially choking it away. George, though, having that double choice scarfed safety blanket was effective, but like you said, it's not the same Miguel that we have seen, and hopefully he kind of digs himself out of that rut to ensure this doesn't happen again.
There was one time where he switched in his Mamoswine after I forget what died, and he switched in his Mamoswine on the Megalopony, and he said that George would be fearing the scarf. Okay, I get that. That's a very clear indication, and I saw some comments in his comment section about this too, actually. If he was fearing the scarf, why go for Ice Shard? Wouldn't it make more sense to go for Icicle Crash or a knockoff or something that could get more damage off than going for Ice Shard and basically revealing that you're not scarfed right away, so that way he knew that he could just power up punch the Mamoswine later on and kill it or return it or anything to kill it, that he doesn't have to fear it being scarfed. I think that was a very simple mistake that I think Miguel overlooked, because George knows all the possibilities. He's a good battler. He knows what to look for. He knew that bringing in Mamoswine, it was either scarfed or he was bluffing it, and he had to play it safe because he couldn't let that much momentum get lost that early in the game with his Megalopony. So it was a very easy prediction to go for Icicle Crash, in my opinion at least.
I'm sure he'll comment on that the way he did last week's power rankings, so maybe he'll give a little insight onto that.
Yeah, I actually would like to know, because in his commentary I was listening to it and he didn't really explain why he went for Ice Shard over anything else, even though he did mention the fact that he was trying to bluff the scarf.
So at my number 6, I have the Sacramento Sea Kings, led by Hayden. And this match was another very solid outing by the new guy. I think that the way he handled Mulvone's team was very effective. His team is, in my opinion, the real deal. It's thorough, it's threatening, and it's complete. There aren't very many holes I could pick apart in Hayden's team. He has the bulk that's necessary. He has the offensive power that's threatening. He has all these means of ensuring that he can, in fact, just win a match on simple yet effective sets. Some coaches I don't think have that luxury. Hayden did a fantastic job in keeping matchups in his favor, and he ensured necessary KOs, but he also kept U-turn initiative when he had to. The Life Orb Clefable set, nice. Having Ice Beam to get rid of Lando T pretty much immediately, nice. His wall core is so fucking annoying. Holy damn.
I love it.
I know.
It brings a smile to my face just thinking about it.
And funny enough is I didn't quite get the potency from, just from like pay-per-view when we first looked over all their drafts as a whole. I didn't quite get it at first. Now that I'm seeing it in practice, holy goddamn, man. Shit, that stuff's so annoying. There's very few things that could break that. Something like Kieran Black, which no one drafted. Haha. So
too bad Kieran Black sucks.
Hey man, I'll argue with that to you, because I don't think so. But it's very effective, and it's so tough to break without a necessary and thorough offensive force, and not very many Mons get the necessary coverage or the necessary power to break Clefable, Mega Sableye, or Slow. Where Mega Manectric threatened Hayden's team, Darmanitan ripped big holes through Mulvone's. So Hayden had said multiple times that Mega Manectric, every time it came in, its moveset and its coverage was effective enough to like pick off a Mon or two on Hayden's side. However, Darmanitan on his side was able to punch and Flare Blitz huge holes in all of Mulvone's members, and that was so impressive. I think I take it back. Anything I said about Hayden's team, his team is offensive, it's defensive, it's awesome, and every week I'm going to enjoy watching.
Hayden is like, I look at his team and I have dreams about Hayden's team. I'm not even going to lie. I think that his team is perfect. Every single week, he's not going to have a bad matchup because he has so many things he could do. I think it's awesome. I think that he played perfectly. I think that he controlled it the entire way through. At no point in time did he say, okay, I have to sack this off. But he wasn't in a position where he's like, okay, I have to sack this off. Then what do I do? He's like, okay, I just have to sack this off and go to Darmanitan, and then I'm good to go. And it's like the fact that he can have that much, he can be that calm and have that much confidence in what he's going to do is fucking amazing. I think that he is doing fantastic. Honestly, if I could make one critique, it would be not beat everybody. I honestly don't know. I can't think of anything wrong that he did this week. The only thing that I can honestly say bothers me is that I feel like some of his team is going to get a little bit standard, and as the season goes on, it's going to be a little bit easier to predict. So just watch out for that. Because when you look at his team, it's like, okay, Clefable is a fat piece of gum. Mega Sableye is just fat. And then he has Darmanitan, which is more likely going to be Choice Scarfed, and then Tornadoes, which is more likely going to be Assault Vest. So it's like, just watch out for the predictability. I love the fact that he ran Focus Blast over Superpower because he's a man. Just watch the predictability, man.
So we'll go back onto the Miguel George train real quick, and we'll talk about my number 5 and your number 6. George of the San Francisco Arcaniders. Isn't it funny how we had him so low like 2 weeks ago?
I think the fact that I had him so low is because of the same reason that Miguel took him for granted. I fell in the same trap that Miguel did this week,
That's a
and
good point.
I really truthfully did. And that's why I think I was so harsh on Miguel is because I'm harsh on myself for the same thing. I had to tell myself the exact same thing when I was looking. I was like, holy shit, he knows what he's doing with his team. Great job. Way to fool me. And it worked out for him. And if he can fool more people like he did me and Miguel, I think he's going to be amazing.
I think we have seen that historically sometimes where a really prolifically good coach kind of underestimates their opponent, and that was the case this week. So, like last week, George had a very solid double Willow play where with Scarf Rotom, yeah, Rotom Ghost, Rotom Spooky. He
Rotom Boo.
yeah, okay, I'll say that from now on, Rotom Boo. So he did that again, and it worked out this time. It worked out last time, of course, but yeah, I like that George is very confident in making that play 2 weeks in a row. I also really like that George had a defensive Nidoqueen and a Scarf Blaziken. The Blaziken had so much coverage. I was actually kind of impressed that Blaziken got that much coverage. I think it was effective, but too bad we won't see that anymore because it's no longer on his team. And the defensive Nidoqueen was effective in taking hits, and I just kind of wish he set up Toxic Spikes. I know I said that before. It would have that residual damage against the rest of Miguel's team, whether it be Mamoswine, Mega Altaria, whatever else, would have been effective in the long run.
It would have also forced his Mega Altaria to go for Heal Bell.
Yeah. And then finally, like I said, his double Choice Scarf blanket, his safety blanket at the end, essentially won the match. He had the match for the most part in his favor. He did play off a lot of Miguel's shortcomings, but in the end, he knew exactly how to take out Miguel. I think if I'm recall correctly, he also did that in D League. So it's nice to see a rivalry that I think will continue to be a very prolific rivalry going on throughout the rest of the season and even just in future seasons of the GBA.
Yeah, I think that George really proved me wrong from what I had him in the past 2 seasons. And that's awesome. I think that His entire strategy this week was fantastic. I think that bringing two threats that Miguel planned for massively and just not bringing them was very smart. I found that sometimes whenever you don't bring a massive threat, it works out better than if you did bring something that openly and obviously destroys somebody's team.
So getting in our top three, we have
Good old Fizzy Stardust.
the wise cracking wise guy who murdered John this week.
That's harsh.
Hey, his Dylan spit hot fire.
Oh my god.
I love that. I love that nickname for Charizard. Although I prefer Rhaegar. Some of you understand that. So with Fizz this week, his team is it's so diverse in such a good way. The way he's using T-Tar as a utility but offensive AV user to get off massive damage against his opponent. Fantastic. The way he's using Togekiss as a means of being annoying, being effective, and being a consistently good wall. Fantastic. It's nice to see it be used well and not be used like, I understand it's still kind of being used like a wall, but it's like a more refreshing means of being a wall this season because it's still minorly offensive, but it serves a very key role on Fizz's team. The way that his Garchomp clutch lived on 3 HP to hang on, nice. Fizz knows how to save sweepers for the end of a match, and he knows when it's necessary to bring in certain mons to clean up or to get off big damage, something like what it did. And that kind of led up into his solid small sweep by Stoutland at the end. Overall, great match. Great match.
I think that Fizz is one of the coaches that has returned and has not missed a beat. Some coaches, they return and they're like, okay, I have to get back into this. He was like, oh, hey, this is nothing new. It's like riding a bike. And he's just sweeping and he's doing so well. It's amazing. Like you said with the Togekiss, that is what has impressed me the most is the way he's used his Togekiss. I think he's used it fantastically. I don't think I could ever use him on that well that is that diverse. I love the way he's using Mega Charizard Y too because it's a nuke button that people kind of sort of sleep on until you have to face it and you do the calcs. You're like, oh, Mega Charizard Y, it's 4 times weak to rocks, no big deal. But he's using it so well, and it's awesome to watch. I love the way he's using Stoutland. It's impressing me more and more, and it's making me want to draft Sand in my next league. I love the way he's doing. I love the fact that he can bring double weather and it not mess him up whatsoever.
I can totally agree with you on the Zard Y thing because when I used it, I did get notions like that where they would say, oh, it's just Zard Y, it's 4x weak to rocks, it's not even that good. And then I bring it, and then mixing that with Kieran Black, oh man, some opponents were just like, this is horseshit, You have such a high special attacker, such a high physical attacker. There are very few answers to both.
Not to even mention that the high special attacker gets an extra boost because of the sun.
In the sun, yeah. And unless you have something that can negate that sun immediately like Politoed did, or like Tyranitar, does, to ensure that you don't get solar beamed in the face, it speaks very well for how Fizz is running his team and how he envisioned his draft to work. It's just overall, it's nice to see how Fizz has adapted. I think this is Fizz's return, that he's basically chasing the title that he was, for lack of better words, robbed of back in Season 3. Back in Season 3, I think that it would have been Cooper and Fizz in the finals in terms of, how potent each of those teams were. So I do expect Fizz to chase down the championship along with, very few other coaches this season.
You said his return, like Stoutland's return. You made the pun this week. Moving on to number 2, which we have these two reversed, which I'm not surprised. I have the Borussia Donphan at number 2, and these two, it's honestly a toss-up. I think you can agree with that, right?
Yeah.
They're the top 2 teams. They play fantastically. They never do. I can honestly not see a single time where they make a misclick or like a mistake. But the Borussia Donphan, the one thing that the Borussia Donphan did this week that I don't really like is the fact that he had Sandslash do one job. When Sandslash can do a lot, especially to a team like Tups, I think that it did what it was supposed to do, and he used it well. It's just, don't get too comfortable having one Pokemon do one role and that's it, because that's how your opponent can figure out what that one role is and can kind of sort of gain momentum through it. However, the Lars is so good that I don't think it really matters what he does in his team building, because he comes in with a specific plan and he just does it every single time. I think Scarf Cobalion was fantastic as a immediate counter to Mega Tyranitar. I think that Mega Absol, I never expected you to do this well with it. Congratulations, like that's fantastic.
That was a clap for all of you in the audience.
God damn it, Tom. Now you're making me all self-conscious and shit. I think that Lars has the insane ability to pick out items immediately. The way he picked out Arcanine's expert belt right away, I was like, holy shit, I didn't even think about any of that shit right then and there. How did you figure it out so quickly? Like, I think that's going to be something that's going to be very useful whenever he's going up against other top players like Nick, Miguel, Dan, and things like that. I think that'll be awesome, and I think that's where he will really show how good he can be.
Like you said, Jolly Scarf Cobalion, that was necessary to, outpace Awesome. It essentially negated Tup's offense, especially after the sand went down, or even before the sand went down. He knew it was just fast enough to beat the Excadrill Sand Rush. So many crits by Tup at the end. Oh man, I think his team needs to be tested for DHDs. Those are dire hit drugs. That's a.
God damn it!
You guys.
No,
all right, that joke's over with. Finally, the way that he used Mega Absol to knock out the Jellicent, or at least get in so efficiently. He got in on the Volt Switch, which did like pitiful damage, but when he got in, that Jellicent, okay, rip that Jellicent. And finally, having Scolipede as like a secondary offensive option, like he did to knock out the Excadrill after the sand was done with Earthquake, awesome. I like what Lars brings to the GBA. I like the fact that we don't just have one or two or three prolific top tier battlers. We have the guys from last year, but then we also have Fizz, we have Lars, we have George. It's such a nice thing to see that it's a race now. It's so deep in terms of very solid competitors that I want to see the rest of the guys that are all that might have lost these past 2 weeks or are 1-1 to also be in that group, because this season is turning out so well for the teams that are good, and just what we can see even in the playoffs. I'm so excited.
I think that also one thing to branch off of that is the fact that these power rankings, for example, like Miguel was your number 1 and my number 2 last week, and now he's number 7. That's from one game, a 1-0 loss. Like, that just goes to show how close this season is and how good everybody has made the competition. I think this season is the perfect season, and honestly, I'm starting to get in my mind who I think will win the whole thing.
And not only that, but can we also discuss how we had George at number 15 back in the post-draft power rankings? Things change, man, and it's nice seeing things change this season in the GBA the way that they are. But talking about my number 2, your number 1, the Boston Red Sox. Now, Nick didn't move. It's Nick for you. He, oh my God, he knew Steve's team to a T. He knew his Skunk Tank's moveset to a T. He knew the sets that he'd bring, all 6 of his Mons, his team prep, and what would switch in, and how he kept the matchups in his favor just by knowing all of that. Oh my God, Nick is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Like you said about Lars, I'm interested to see how he takes on Dan, Miguel, George, other competitors like that, because his planning is so just effective. Eject button Skarmory just to get out to solely scout out the Skunk Tank's moveset was brilliant. The Iron Tail Mega Autono, I'll let you say.
It was so perfect.
Pretty much what I expected. It was solid tech by Nick. He knew the risk of it missing, but did he care? No, because he's a man, like you said about Focus Miss.
Exactly.
The fact that both those competitors had misclicks in that match, and the fact that both they both recognized it. I love Nick's team. I love the way that Nick is playing. I love that in general. The way that he just uses things, like the way he cleaned up with acrobatics, or the way that he used Cobra Berry to check and negate the way that Steve used knockoff on Conkeldurr. So effective, man. And just the little things that he is doing so well, I think a lot of other coaches can learn from in order to just be that much better. I don't expect Nick to slide unless he loses somehow, because I think this week he plays GA. I might be
Mm,
wrong, but Nick is just gonna keep being a force to be reckoned with, and I hope his season is as successful as he's played so far.
I think that Nick. Okay, first of all, I'm a fangirl for Mega Audino. Yes, it's my favorite Pokemon in the entire game. However, whenever you look at a person that uses a Pokemon that is regularly NU, that everybody says sucks in the league format and can bring it both weeks, have it do something specific both weeks and do it well, that goes to show what Nick can do, and that honestly goes to show why I love Mega Audio in the draft format. It can do so much, so well, and it's fantastic. It's so bulky, so fat. I love the way he's using everything on his team for that fact. Skarmory, he's using it amazing. He's using sets that people wouldn't even expect. They just expect the standard Fizz Def or Spadef with Spike, Stealth Rock, Steep Bug, whatever have you. Standard.jpg, but he's just being so diverse and so smart with all of his team building. It's just whenever you have somebody that is basically playing a perfect game 2 weeks in a row, do not let me down, Nick.
So that is your week 2 power rankings. I hope you all enjoyed. If you've lasted this far for 90 minutes or so, recognize this wasn't the most prolific power rankings. It wasn't that much to say. There was bad, there was okay, and there was some really good. Next week maybe it'd be a little different. Maybe we could bring you guys some better commentary. But I hope you all enjoyed overall. And anything else you have to say?
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Yay! So with that being said, I wish you all happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys enjoy your holiday with your family. If you're not from the United States, enjoy your Thursday. So with that being said, I will sign off here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for week 3.
Bye.